Hey guys! Alright. Alright, computer's down here, camera's up here, so sorry the weirdness here. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. It took a minute for it to start streaming, like the connection went out in the house. That was awesome. But it's back. This is going to be a tutorial style stream because I'm also, once it's finished, it's going to go up on YouTube. So I'll be explaining everything I do. I'm working on Freya. You can see the picture over there. So I'm going to be working on the brown leather top that's underneath everything. Because it's completely covered, I'm just going to do a crop top because nobody's going to see any of that, so there's no reason to do a full top. And the first thing I did was sketch it out. I actually sketched out a whole bunch of stuff. And I am going to draft the pattern. So set your mannequin to your measurements, so you'll need somebody to either to help you take your measurements or take your measurements, set your mannequin to your measurements. Plus size girls like myself, these boobs are not like our boobs, so make sure you add your bra on top and stuff that bra if needed. That way you make sure that the curvature and everything is correct. So we're going to start with some just plain old saran wrap. I gotta move this a little bit, sorry. There we go. It's actually easier just to take it out of the box. And we're gonna wrap this dress form in saran wrap. A little fiddly at first, but it gets easier. Make sure you cover all the areas that you're going to need. So like I've got a big gap here at the back, and I want a t-shirt type curved neckline. So I'm going to add some saran wrap here to this back that's open. This is how I make patterns for anything that is form fitting. Now this isn't going to be super form fitting, but you can add just a little bit of seam allowance to get the fit that you want. I wouldn't use this technique for anything that was baggy because it's not going to give you what you want for something that's baggy. For that I would actually just drape, and that's a whole other video. But next time I have a cosplay that I need to drape, I will try to stream it or record it so I can show you. Okay, so once everything that you are going to need for your pattern is covered in saran wrap, you are then going to cover it in duct tape. So switch out my saran wrap for some duct tape. And I'm just going to use manageable strips. You don't want to just take the duct tape and just wrap it around, because anything that's squishy, it's going to compress that, and then you're not going to get that curve in your pattern. So I usually like to start this between the boobs area to try to get that formed. Start doing like a little X. And then after that is done, I like to do the under bust area. You can also make this pattern on yourself. If you want something extremely form-fitting, I would recommend doing it on yourself. They said this isn't going to be, this is form-fitting. It's not baggy, but it's not super form-fitting. It's not going to be skin tight. Anything skin tight you would definitely want to do on yourself. It's way easier if you have somebody to help you when you do this on yourself, but it's not impossible to do it completely on your own. It's just a pain in the butt. I've made many patterns all by myself. Now you only really, unless you have a weird unique design that has the two sides are not mirror of each other, you only have to do half of this. You want to do part of the other half just to hold it in place, because as you start pulling and tugging, if there's nothing over here, that saran wrap is just going to pull right off. So I do a little bit just kind of to frame it out to keep it steady and held together. But I'm not going to do the whole thing in duct tape. It's just a waste of duct tape. Oh, my husband's here. Hi, baby. And hi, Ollie. So anyway, just keep adding tape. Thankfully, this is just a crop top, so it shouldn't take too long to get all of this tape on so I can get to the drawing part. It's kind of why I did this one as a stream. So for the ladies, when you're trying to get that under boob curve, notice how it comes up like this instead of going a straight across. You want to kind of work the duct tape in a way that it's going to go around the curves with minimal folding. Obviously, you're going to have some folding. You can see some puckering here, but you want to minimize that. If you're getting too much, try smaller strips. I'm doing well, Ollie. How are you? You want to make sure you get good coverage. You don't need to build it up, and in fact you don't really want to build it up because that's just going to make your pattern off by a little bit. But you want to make sure that all of the plastic wrap is covered. How's work going, babe? I see you're super busy if you're not only stopping by, because my husband's a silent lurker in my videos. He usually logs on and watches, but he's too busy to actually comment. So either you're taking a break or you're not too terribly busy today. And after yesterday, I hope you're not too terribly busy. You're hungry? Well, then go get something to eat, Ollie. I just ate. I just had lunch. That's why I chose 1 o'clock for my stream, so that I would have lunch. Okay, let's do another layer down here. Okay, so the front is done. See, I've got a good half of it. And from my sketch, I'm going to do a V-neck. And I'm going to do a crop top, so it doesn't really need to come down too far. So now I'm going to turn it to the back so I can get that covered. Oh, you ordered pasta? You waiting for it to get there? I'm able to, I might edit this video for YouTube so that there's not so much dead time. And fast forward through me putting this duct tape on. It's not really necessary to the video. But I don't know if I can edit videos when I upload them to YouTube from Twitch. Not sure how that goes. I usually use cheapo duct tape, but the good duct tape was on sale. And I use cheapo duct tape because it's not as thick. So for like the tinier, fiddlier curves and details of the body, it makes it a little easier. But this shirt's not very fiddly, so. My little one's doing good. Ollie, how's your little one? Almost done, I promise. Then we can get on to the next part. I had a cold like 4 weeks ago, and the cough never went away. So I apologize for hacking here on camera. So I'm just kind of making sure I got all of the parts that I'm going to need covered. Okay, so I think I've got everything covered. Let me just do a quick double. That one a little crooked. Let's do another piece. Okay, so there we have half a duct tape form. So the next part is to draw your pattern. This should show up good. So this is why I love sketching out what I'm going to sew or create, because it kind of gives me an idea of where seams should be and how it should line up. So I am going to sketch out the basic outline of this top, and then I'll go in and add the details. Oh, this is a fine tip marker. That's not going to work. I need a big old fat marker. There we go. So this does not have a seam down the middle, but I'm only doing half of it. So this is like my fold seam. Okay, so I think that's good at the bottom. Alright, so I have the front now drawn out. Hopefully you can kind of see. I did the outline of it, and then I've got the seam here, the seam that goes underneath the boob, and then the bottom of the top. So I'm going to move on to the back and draw a line down the center here. Oh, let's try to make that straight. I was trying to show you guys and I made it super crooked. And do the back. The back, I decided nobody's going to see it, so it's not getting any super fancy seams. So I'm just going to extend the bottom of the top over. There we have. Okay, so, oh, and I also need to add a shoulder seam across the top. So now before we cut this off and do any of the transferring, you want to label your pieces so you don't mess them up. So I'm going to call this, F is front, so I'm going to call this F. FC, so front cup. That's for like the, you know, the boob cup. So front cup, and then I'll do front shoulder, FS, and then just F for front for this under piece. Forgot my side seam. And then I'm just going to call this back piece B for back. Now this only has 4 pattern pieces, so it's not going to be super difficult to keep them together, and if you forgot to label them, like, it wouldn't be the end of the world. You'd still be able to figure out where they went. When you do something that has a lot of pattern pieces like my Captain America or my Green Arrow, you're going to want to make sure that you label really, really well. And in fact, I actually sketched it out on a piece of paper and labeled the paper with the labels I used for my pattern. That way when I cut it all out, I wouldn't be like, okay, how does this go together again? I had a reference sheet, and that's a really good idea when you have a lot of patterns. Like my Captain America, I believe the jacket had 96 pattern pieces, So yeah, when it gets up there, it's definitely worth creating a reference sheet for you. Oh, my chat went crazy. Ollie, you're insane here. Oh, you had a photo shoot. Oh, that's right, you did have a photo shoot. That's awesome. I'm glad it went really well for you. Okay, so the next part is cutting this off. And somehow my scissors have run away. I swear I had everything out and ready for the stream. I was like, oh, I'm going to be all proactive and have everything out and ready. And yeah, my scissors, like, vanished. They're not here. So give me just a second to run and grab my scissors and I will be right back. These are not my scissors, but they will work. There's like a truck just sitting right outside my house. Oh, never mind. It's the neighbor. It looked like a truck was just sitting out in front of the house. I was like, what the heck? There's somebody here. Don't come in. So you want to cut this off. Now, if you do your pattern on your body, please, 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 please be very, very careful when you're cutting the pattern off your body. Also, if you do it on your body and you're by yourself, wrap yourself up, cut it off you from the front is best, and then put it on your dress form to draw out your patterns. It works way easier if you don't have somebody who can help you. All right. So we don't need this part, which this is going in the garbage. That's why I say don't use a whole bunch of duct tape on this, just enough to keep it on the dress form. I am going to put up my secondary screen because I'm going to have to rearrange the room just a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing with the pattern here, and I don't want, you know, shaky cam for y'all. So I am still here. I can still talk to you. I'm still here. I can still talk to you, but I'm going to be rearranging the camera. Like I said, I don't want to give y'all motion sickness. Poor camera mount, it keeps popping apart. I can't actually see what the camera sees while I'm doing this, so I'm trying to get this organized in such a way that you guys can see what I'm doing without me having to give you shaky cam, but I also can't see what the camera sees, so I can't set it up appropriately. So there will be a little shaky cam, just a little. We'll try to, like I said, we'll try to minimize that. All right, let's see how I did. Well, not too bad. I still need to turn this a little. Sorry, a little bit of shaky cam here. Oh, the tripod keeps falling apart. Sorry, guys. There we go. All right, that should be good. All right, so I'm going to cut out all of these pieces. Not super exciting, but you know, we'll get this done and over with and move on to more exciting things. Alright, pattern piece number 1 is out. Yay! Pattern piece number 2. Pattern piece number 3. And pattern piece number 4. So thankfully with this one, most of these are going to lay flat. Like this back piece is pretty flat, but this piece here is going to be a problem because it's curved and fabric is not curved. So that usually means we need to put a dart in there. Now, she does not have any darts in hers, so what I'm going to, in hers, so, and it's probably because hers is leather and it's wet formed, and you can get leather to do that. I'm doing pleather, so can't wet form pleather. So what I'm going to do is this side piece, that is not going to be seen. That is going to be covered, so that's where I'm going to put my dart. So I'm just going to kind of choose a spot. You know, you want to make sure you have it up how it's going to be. So here's your curve, here's this, here's the armhole here. So I'm going to do it like right here. It's going to go to the bottom, from the bottom, not the armhole, but it's going to be the side of the bottom. And I'm going to kind of just cut until, so now that gives me this. For this one here, this isn't going to be seen. It doesn't matter how big this dart is. You can, the more darts you do, the more subtle of a curve you can do. Like I said, this is kind of a boxier top, so it doesn't really matter how precise I get this curve. So I'm just going to do that one. It still doesn't lie flat exactly, but it should be good enough. All the other pieces are relatively flat, so those are good. So the next step is to take these pattern pieces and transfer them to wax paper. And add your seam allowance. You can also use butcher paper, and basically any type of paper, newspaper, whatever. You're just creating a paper pattern. Now, you could, oh, bye Ollie, thanks for stopping by. You can just pin this to your fabric. I highly recommend you do not do that because this adhesive that's on the duct tape will then transfer onto your needles, and then you're going to have to clean your needles, and that's just a lot. Like, if this seems like extra work, that's a ton of extra work. So we're going to transfer this onto wax paper. So I'm going to do a rough, you center it on your wax paper and then do like a rough sketch all the way around. And transfer your label. So this is what you get. That is not your pattern, because if you cut that out and put it, transferred it to paper or to fabric, and then sewed it all together, it's not going to fit because this doesn't include any seam allowance. So this is where your seam should be, but it is not where the end of your fabric should be. So we're going to add a seam allowance. I'm pretty good at guesstimating a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and that's what I'm going to do here because, like I said, the fit on this, it's kind of boxy. It's underneath a whole bunch of other layers, so there's really no need to go super detailed. When I made my Captain America, I got my ruler out and I measured 1/2 inch all the way around the pattern to make sure that I had exactly 1/2 inch because those pattern pieces needed to be absolutely precise. So you are welcome to use a ruler and give yourself precise measurements. If you're doing this specific project and you're making Freya's undershirt, you're welcome to kind of eyeball it like I'm doing. If it's your first time, you probably feel more comfortable if you measure it. That way you make sure, like I said, I make patterns all the time, so I'm pretty good at estimating a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Also, if you don't want this to be too form-fitting, I actually didn't think about this. If you don't want this to be too form-fitting, you can add like a 1/4 inch all the way around and then add your 1/2 inch seam allowance, or just do a 3/4 inch seam allowance all the way around it, and then only use a 1/2 inch when you're sewing. I think what I'm going to do, I did a 1/2 inch, so I'll just use a 1/4 inch seam allowance while I'm sewing. That way it makes it just a touch bigger, so that it's not super tight, because it isn't supposed to be form-fitting. So here's the first pattern piece. Now that I have it drawn out and the seam allowance in, I am going to cut out that pattern. Okay, so these are not my scissors. I have no idea what happened to my scissors. I swear my scissors grow legs and they just get up and walk away. And it's the only thing I can explain because I'm constantly losing my scissors. And I probably have like 4 pairs of non-fabric scissors that I use for pattern making. Because do not use your fabric scissors on any of these cutting pieces. Cutting it out of the paper, cutting it out of the duct tape. None of that. Do not use your fabric scissors. Your fabric scissors should be used for fabric, and that is absolutely it. Nothing else. All right, pattern piece number 1 is finished. There's a kitty in here. I'm going to do pattern piece 2 and 3 on the same sheet here. So remember, you're going to trace it out. Transfer your marking. Let's do the next one. The labeling also helps you keep track of which way's up and down on your pattern, because like this one here, I drew on here sideways, so I put the front, the F for front, sideways to tell myself that it goes up and down this way, not this way. All right, so now we're going to add seam allowance. I usually use a 1/2 inch seam allowance when I create my patterns, unless something is small and fiddly, like my Green Arrow and my Captain America. With the small and fiddly details, I usually do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And if it's super small and fiddly, then I do an 1/8 inch and cry a whole lot as I sew it, because it's a pain in the butt. Okay, seam allowance for that. Seam allowance for this. I also forgot you should do notches to so that you know how it's supposed to line up. My bad, I am sorry. So when your pattern is still together, before you cut it out, you should notch it. I always forget this part. You should notch it like that. I'm trying to make sure it's together here. All right. So you should notch it like that. See how there's like a little notch here? Yeah, there we go. That way when you cut it apart, when you go to sew it back together, you know where to sew it back together. So you would transfer those notches as well onto your pattern. I apologize for not doing that. Like I said, that's a step I always forget, and then I remember it as I'm cutting out my pattern pieces, and I'm like, gosh darn it, this is gonna be a pain in the butt. Thankfully, this is such a boxy top that it really shouldn't matter, and I shouldn't have too many issues putting it together. Ah, goodness. All right, and one more pattern piece, and that is the back piece. Now, this back piece, thankfully, is just the right size that it fits this whole piece of paper. But if it didn't, you could just tape 2 pieces of paper, like just line 2 up side by side and put some tape on the seam, and then continue your pattern. Okay, and now that I've traced it, we're going to add the seam allowance. Once we have our pattern piece cut out, we can then transfer it to our fabric and cut it out of our fabric. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this here. I'm going to rearrange just a little bit. My serger is currently in the way, so I'm going to move my serger. Oh, I'm going to have to move the microphone too. There we go. And grab the fabric. All right. So here's my fabric. I'm gonna roll it out so I just have one double layer. Here we go. All right, so it's fabric is usually folded in half, so I have one. Here's the fold, so one double layer of fabric. All right, so your back piece does not need a seam up the back, or at least for this project, the back piece does not need a seam up the back. So I'm actually going to place this on the fold as best as I can. Oh, let me use the, oh my goodness. Let's use the piece that I actually made, the pattern piece I made. So I'm going to place this on the fold. That way, when I open it up, it'll be twice the size that it is. Some people use weights, some use pins. I use pins. I've never really been able to cut with the weights without everything moving around. I like my pattern to be nice and secure. Make sure, like this here is a pleather fabric. When you're working with pleather, make sure that you pin within your seam allowance, because the pinholes are not going to close up in pleather. They're going to stay there. So you want to pin within your seam allowance so that you don't have pinholes in your garment. Okay, so that's pin. All right, I'm going to put the front shoulder right here. Because this is pleather, also, I don't have to worry about grain line. Grain is a little more than I want to get into in this video, but for most things, the grain line is just going to go up and down like this. There are occasions when you will do a cross grain or whatever, but just make sure that your pieces are all straight up and down. do the front piece next. Pleather is one of those pain in the ass materials. It's not so fun to work with. I've learned some tips and tricks over the years to kind of make it a little bit better. And I recently purchased a walking foot, which is supposed to make life just so much better when working with pleather. But then I moved, and I have no idea what I did with it. I packed it somewhere. I just haven't found it yet. One of these days I'll unload a box or be going through a storage bin or whatever and come across it. But until then, I'll just wish that I knew where it was, because that would make life so much easier right now. That's okay. Alright, so I'm going to cut this out before I move on and do the other pieces. Or other piece, there's only one more. So this I am going to cut out with my fabric scissors. God, they need sharpened. Okay, that is good. Leather's not so friendly on your scissors as well, or pleather is not so friendly on your scissors. I actually need to take and have my scissors sharpened professionally, because they are just so awfully dull that even sharpening them using my little cheat box there isn't working very well. But I used to get them done at Hancock, and Hancock's no longer a thing, so I'll have to find a new place to get them sharpened. Oh, goodness, sorry. Hitting stuff, not paying attention. Kitty, what are you doing? Stop scratching. Sharpen again. Oh my goodness, these scissors are awful. other scissors that are better, but they're really, really heavy, so I don't want to use them. Alright, piece number 2 is done. What did I do with it? Oh, there it is. What did I do with the first one? Alright, piece number 3 is done. We just have one more piece to cut out. Alright, let's pin this piece. Okay, sharpen these again. Almost done with this part. I know this is kind of boring here. Apologize for that. We're almost done, and then we can start sewing. And hopefully that's not boring. Set this fabric off to the side. Alright, now for the front cup, I am actually on this dart, I am going to cut almost up to it. Which is kind of in a little from the seam allowance, but that's so that it just folds a little nicer. Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna set up the sewing machine. I have it set from last time, so it has white in here, and I'm not using white on this, we'll use black. Apparently, do I not have a black? Well, it's not. Oh my goodness. Thought I had one of these open as well, but I guess not. Go to one of the other ones. Alright, so I'm going to thread my sewing machine to fill a bobbin. Sewing machines are all different. Most of them are kind of similar, but they're all different, so you want to follow the instructions for your sewing machine. Okay, apparently this bobbin doesn't work. Another one. Oh, it's not the bobbin, it's this. What is it catching on? Once your bobbin's wound, you can go ahead and thread your bobbin. Again, different machines are going to be different, so make sure you thread yours correctly, and then thread your machine. Okay, now it's time to start sewing. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the pattern from the fabric. Now, depending on what you're making, you're going to need to transfer the labels from your pattern onto your fabric. I have 4 pattern pieces, so I don't think that's necessary. I think I can keep them straight. I'm going to move my microphone back up onto a table. Alright, so I'm going to do my dart first. Pleather likes to stick to itself, so bear with me as I try to pull this apart. There we go. Now, if you have clips for sewing, those would be so much better than pins. I don't have clips for sewing, therefore I have to use pins, and I just have to make sure I'm pinning within my seam allowance. But clips would be so much better. So I fold with right sides together. I fold, match up where my dart needs to go, and then I'm pin along it, and now I'm going to sew it. Now, you may have noticed that I sew forward and then I reverse and then I sew again, or you might not have, but that's what I do. I sew forward, I reverse, and then I sew again. That creates a locking stitch so that I don't have to tie off the ends of the thread. Alright, so there is my dart. As you can see, it's really pointy right here. That's because I did one big dart instead of a bunch of darts. But that's going to be covered by the top, so there's really no reason to try to fix that. That's why I did the dart how I did it. So now we're going to do the same thing on this other one. This is actually such a tiny thing, I don't even think I'm going to pin this. Number 2 is done. Okay, there we go. All right, yes, sweet. Now I am going to attach the shoulder to the front pieces. So the only thing you need to really know on your shoulder, if you don't mark your pieces, you need to know which way is up. So I'm just going to put a little chalk mark on the inside of the fabric at the top. That way I know which way is up for the fabric. Apart. There we go. And then I am going to match this up with the fabric, and then so I have it laying here. You have your cup here, the shoulder here. I'm going to pull the shoulder down so that it is right side of the fabric to right side of the fabric. I'm going to line it up as best I can because, like I said, I didn't do good seam allowances, so it's not going to be exact. And then I'm going to go ahead and sew this. And that's what you got. I'm going to repeat on this other side. Okay. Now, what I should have done, another, sometimes as I'm making it, I'm like, oh, I should have done this. I should have marked where on here the boob cups needed to be sewn together, but I didn't, so I'm just going to kind of transfer. All right, so they should be sewn here. So I'm going to put them together, and I'm just going to sew this part up to the chalk mark. And now I have the front. And the front actually should have gone on a fold as well. I don't need a seam down the center, I don't think. No, I don't, but that's okay. It's gonna have a seam down the center because I don't feel like recutting it. And I'm again just marking which way is up so that I don't get it flipped around. I can't figure out how it's supposed to look. I have my pattern like on a little table down here underneath me so I can kind of back up and just kind of peek at it and be like, how does this look? How's it supposed to be? So I'm gonna, again, line it up with my pattern. I'm actually gonna sew it together here at the middle. Go. Now I am going to sew it to the cuffs. This will require the use of pins. When I do small things, I'm really bad about using pins. I'm like, I don't need a pin. But when you do longer or curved segments, it's a really good idea to make sure that you use pins and use lots and lots of pins. Especially that, like, the more fiddly the seam is, the more pins you should use. Like, I'm using tons of pins right now because this is a nice curved seam and I want to make sure that it lies nicely. So, pin, pin, pin. See how that looks. Right, good, good. Almost. All right, so now I'm going to sew this. nice and slow. Make sure that none of the fabric is bunching up underneath. Especially when you're doing curves like this, the fabric tends to want to bunch. So go slow and rearrange the fabric as you go so that it doesn't bunch, so you don't get any weird wrinkles on the one piece. So I did 1 cup. I'm going to rearrange the fabric and do the other cup. There's that seam in the middle because I forgot to do it on the fold, which is why I did not just sew it all together. I want to go around that seam. This is probably going to be the hardest part right here of this top. Because you can't see a whole lot of it, and you kind of got to do some stuff by feel and make sure that there's no wrinkles and that you don't catch that back fabric where it shouldn't be caught. Okay, now that I'm finished, I'll turn this right side out and see how it's turning out. All right, yeah, not too bad. So now we're going to do this back part. Well, we need to tack. Okay, so if this was fabric, these seams here, you would just iron this down and that would keep it nice and flat. See how it's like puckery and not pretty? It's because you know, it's not ironed, but you can't iron pleather because it's plastic and it'll just melt. So what you have to do is sew down the seams. You have to sew them. But that's kind of a pain in the butt. If you don't have a walking foot, because this fabric is sticky, if you don't have a walking foot or a Teflon foot, because this fabric's sticky and it doesn't want to go. Now, I am not using this pattern again, so one of my cheats is to use wax paper, and you put wax paper over top, because you can kind of see through it. That way you can sew across the seam. So let me kind of show you what I'm doing here. On the back side, you have the seam here. You're going to fold this either towards the cup or towards the shoulder. It doesn't really matter which one you do, just keep it universal. So if you're folding down, make sure all of your seams are folded down. So I'm going to do folded down. So you're going to make sure that's folded down, and then you're going to sew across the bottom of the seam so that it holds that down, that seam down. So for long seams, you have to constantly be monitoring that your seam is down. And I'm using like an 1/8 inch seam. You don't want a big, huge seam. And if you've been using 1/2 inch seams, you have to make sure that your seam is smaller than that. So then once you have done it, let me trim my threads here. Now your paper's attached, but you can just peel that off like so. And that gives you the seam. See how nice and flat this lays as compared to that one. See, there we go. See the difference? So that is what we're going to do now before we get too far along here. Because the more together your garment is, the harder it's going to be to go back and do that on some of the pieces. So we're just going to do it right now. We're going to do it on the dart as well. Oops, that didn't work. Sometimes the wax paper kind of gets stuck in there and you gotta pull it out. Sometimes tape will work. Like I've got some little pieces in here. I'll get those out later, then I'll just use some tape to pull them out. The darts on the sides, I actually folded up because they folded nicer that way. Since that's not going to be seen, it doesn't really matter that it's not folded in the same direction as all the other seams. All right, now I'm going to do the undercups and the center seam over here. Good. Sometimes it's good to just kind of fold it out and make sure everything's working correctly. Almost finished with this part. Okay. Fantastic. Just sew this front part. All right. Trim up all these threads here on the back side. It's because they're going to get in the way if we don't. Okay, so here is where we are at. We've tacked down all of these front seams. Now we can sew the front to the back. Now I am going to put the zipper on this top in the side. Actually, I might not even put in a zipper. I might just do a pull over, but I have to test it first to make sure it's going to fit. So we're going to take our back pattern, and again, like the other ones, I'm just going to mark the top so I know which way is the top, although this one's a little bit easier to figure out. And like I said before, if you're using a pattern, or if you made a pattern and it has a lot of pattern pieces, you're going to want to transfer your labels onto your actual fabric. But this is an easy 4-pattern crop top, so no need for that extra step. And this one I did remember to place the pattern on the fold, so we do not have to sew the back up. It is already together. Like such. So we are just going to place right sides together, and the first thing I'm going to do is sew it together at the shoulder seams. So go ahead and line up your shoulder seams and sew. Use pins or clips if that makes you more comfortable. Got one shoulder sewn together. Let's do the second one. Okay, and I am going to go ahead and tack the shoulders down as well, like we've been doing. I am actually going to fold the seam towards the back this time. See, I got a couple of new people watching. I am doing a tutorial style stream. I'm walking through how to do Freya's little crop top leather shirt that she wears underneath her vests. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Right now I'm just tacking the seams down so that the leather's not poofy over them. this entire video will be uploaded to my YouTube later today. So it'll be available on my channel under the tutorials. Alright, so the shoulders are now sewn together. We're going to keep it inside out so that we can keep the right sides of the fabric together. And I'm going to sew one of the sides together. Alright. Alright, there we go. So now we have this for her top. Now I'm actually just going to slide this on and see if I can maybe, well, one, to check fit, and two, to see if I could just sew the side together without putting in a zipper. Oh gosh, fit is atrocious on this boot cup. Why is it really bad on that one and not on this one? That doesn't make any sense. Alright. I'm going to actually put it on my mannequin because it's not making sense on me. Somehow the boot cups are just enormous. Like, they are not how they should be at all. Let me see, this should go like this. I'm going to have to do a lot of editing on this. So sometimes this happens for, you know, because I sized it up just a bit, it is now like incredibly big in the boob cup area. So I am going to put this on my mannequin, and then we're going to size it over there so we can make it sized a little bit better. So I'm pinning it on my mannequin right now, and then I will turn the camera so that you can see what I'm doing. Alright, let's turn this camera. So, shaky cam warning. So I put it on my mannequin inside out. That way I can pin stuff and just go ahead and sew it up. So the first thing I'm going to pin is the center. This it should have been on a fold because I didn't do it on a fold. It's definitely messed up, which I wish I would have seen before I went ahead and tacked that seam down. That's okay. so that looks better. All right, now we're gonna try to fix this rest cup. Which is definitely easier said than done. Oh, welcome back, Ollie. Thank you. Yeah, got quite a bit done. I feel like that could be okay. It would just be a little baggy. Let me duplicate that over here. Okay. So that looks a little better. It's still not perfect, but definitely better. This armhole is all wonky. I don't know what I did, but I somehow made this armhole all sorts of wonky. I think this dart really messed me up. This is why you should notch your patterns, like I forgot to do. Alright. Okay, so I feel like that'll work. This whole side is going to be covered. That's not going to be shown. Ideally, even if something's not going to be shown in my cosplays, I like to make it pretty all the way around, not just pretty while it's on. You know, I want the whole thing to look pretty. But this is like a stash challenge for me, so it's to use up materials that are in my stash. Like, I'm not buying anything for this, and I'm not entering in any competitions. So I don't want to remake anything. this one. When you do darts, okay, so I do not tie off any of my threads because I do the forward, backwards, forward thing. However, when you do darts, you should never do that at the tip of the dart, or your dart is always going to be pointy. You should always tie those off. And there's like ways to get it to do it, and it like the dart is just gorgeous. I have not learned these ways. I am not a dart sensei or anything. Loose thread while I was pinning this, and I've lost it. Maybe I already cut it off. I don't know. Alright, let's do this last one, and then we can do another fit test. And then if it fits, then I can tack these seams down. Alright. Oh gosh, I forgot to turn the camera. I'm sorry, guys. I'm doing a quick fit test on me to see if it seems to be fitting a little better. Yeah, definitely. Still not like perfect by any means, but that's okay. Like as long as it fits, kind of. I do think I'm going to do a zipper. I just think a zipper would work better. Alright, so this is not inside out. This is how it's supposed to be. As you can see, like the boob over on the sides is still really kind of mucked up. Thankfully, you're just gonna see like from here over, and that looks gorgeous. So I'm not really gonna worry about it. I'm just gonna leave it how it is. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and tack down this seam and the two darts. And before I do that, let's go ahead and turn you guys back around so you can see what I am doing. Alright, there we go. Okay, Ollie, I'll talk to you later. Alrighty. And now I gotta seam the front as well. And then we'll install the zipper. And I'm also trimming this front seam a little bit so it's not quite so thick, because right now it's pretty thick. Alright, so I've got this. Now I'm going to get a zipper. We'll go ahead and install a zipper. My dress form just decided to nosedive. Bear with me for just one moment because I gotta find a zipper that will work. In fact, I'll just go ahead and do that up here. I have a bag or container full of zippers, and I'm really just looking for one for the size. What it looks like really doesn't matter because it's not going to be seen, so if it's not the right color, that's okay. It also happens to be an invisible zipper, so that's really nice because it won't be seen anyway. So I'm going to install the zipper upside down. So it zips up this way and then zips down. That'll make it easier to get on and off, especially since the bottom on a invisible zipper is fused, so you can't undo it. It's going to constantly be open. So it'll be like this in my top. Alright, so this is the front. I have the front side up, and I'm going to take my zipper, place it Oh, now I gotta think about this. Never mind. Front side down. So I'm looking at the back of my front. And I'm going to take the zipper, put the front side, no, I had it right. I'm sorry. Jeez almighty. Zippers are kind of my bane. I have figured them out though. Okay. Front side up. You're going to take the zipper and you are going to put it down as like such. That way when it's sewn, it folds this way. Hopefully you can kind of see what I mean. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this zipper in. Now you replace your foot and put a zipper foot in. I have some feet down here. Yeah, there we go. Here's my zipper foot. The zipper foot just helps you get closer to the teeth of the zipper. Now that the zipper is in, oh geez. Oh. Don't sew your zipper in backwards. You want to, like, I should probably follow the directions I'm giving y'all. So now I gotta seam rip the zipper because I put it upside down. Or backwards. I put it backwards. I feel like a sewing project is not legit if you don't have to break out the seam ripper at least once because you did something wrong. At least any sewing project I'm part of. I feel like I always do at least something wrong. If I have to break out the seam ripper 3 times during a project, I always stop because obviously something's wrong. Either I'm tired or I'm frustrated, but whatever it is, something's going on that's causing me to make a lot of mistakes, and it's really just best if I step back and either go work on something else or just take a break from cosplay altogether and like regroup the next day or the next time I have a chance to sew. But this is only number 1 of this project, so we're not doing too bad. I'm not doing too bad. And I cannot believe I just did that. Told you zippers were my bane. They are the bane of my existence. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love sewing channels. I feel like sewing is kind of the thing that cosplayers don't really get a lot of. Like, there's very few sewing panels when you go to cons, and there's not a lot of cosplayers who really address sewing. So that's kind of my niche, my brand. I've been sewing for a long time. Completely self-taught, so I probably do a lot of things incorrectly, but, you know, whatevs. Yeah, zippers are a pain in the butt. I'm finally to the point where most of the time my zippers look good. But, I mean, honestly, usually the seam ripper comes out when I'm sewing a zipper because I've done something incorrectly. So you're going to start streaming your sewing as well? I try to stream I try to stream as much as I can of what I'm doing, because even like if I don't know what I'm doing, I feel like people can learn from all the mistakes I'm making. Oh, nice. I think 90% of my problem when I'm sewing anything is that I try to go too fast. I have like zero patience. Like, go, 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 I want to get done. Alright, now that I have it set in properly, so you see like when I fold it over, now it goes like that. This invisible zipper I am not installing correctly. I probably should. Alright, so to hold it in place I just did a stitch. Now to do it properly, you're supposed to sew as close to the zipper as you possibly can. So now I will try to do that. So now I just talked myself into doing this properly, so I went back and re-sewed that zipper so that it is actually in here properly, so that hopefully when it's installed, when you unzip, you don't actually see the zipper, you just see the edges together nice and neat. Alright, now give me a second to figure out how to do this other side. Alright, so you're going to unzip it, and you're going to then put your open side against your other open side. The open side of the zipper against the open side of your top. And we're going to go ahead and pin this. Alright, and again, sew as close to the zipper as you can. This is only if you're doing an invisible foot, or invisible zipper, jeez. Voila. Okay, now we gotta tack that seam down so it's not all poofy, and we also have to do this other side seam that I haven't done. So the one, well, first change your foot back to your universal foot or your Teflon foot if you're lucky to have one. I haven't ordered mine yet. For the side seam that's sewn, I am pushing the seam back towards the back of the garment, and that's where I'm sewing. That's how I'm tacking it down. the side seam finished. And the zipper part is going to be a little bit trickier, so I'm doing the zipper closed, and it's actually going to have two seams, one on each side of the zipper. You just want to be careful that this fabric doesn't pucker up and go over to the other side. Otherwise it's going to make zipping it up really difficult. So you just want to make sure that it doesn't pucker. Alright, one side's done. Do the other side. I just saw that you followed. Thank you for the follow, Magpire. Yeah, so invisible zippers in pleather are even more of a pain in the butt than they are in literally every other type of fabric. I mean, they're always a pain in the butt. This was really difficult, and this does not look good. Like, I'm so glad this is not going to be a competition piece, because that seam does not look very good. You can still see the green zipper, but it's okay. And the zipper works nicely, so that's all that matters. So now I'm going to do a quick test fit on myself. Make sure everything's fitting correctly. Oy. I really wish my darts on the boob cups had turned out better because they're horrific. I'm really sorry about that. My stuff is usually better than that. But alright, so here's my base. So then I have to add like the white stitching and stuff, and oh my god, like this side right here is just so bad. Thankfully it's not going to be seen. The vest will come down and cover it, but still, I wish it was better. Alright, we'll take this off. And I'm going to put it on my mannequin. I feel like I should rename my tutorials to Learn With Me, because like sometimes I make such horrific mistakes and it's like I'm learning this too. I'm not perfect. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not like an expert seamstress. I taught myself, so I just kind of have to figure it out as I go. But oh well, it works. It doesn't look awful, and with all the other layers I think it'll look pretty nice. Oh, I just cut into this. That was fantastic. Alright, I'm going to turn this camera again so you can see what I'm doing. I'm cleaning up the armholes because they're not very clean. There, now it looks a little better. And cleaning up the neckline. There we go. Okay, so she also has little detailing. She's got stitches. I think I am going to do those in chalk to kind of show where I need to go. And then I'll have to do some hand sewing later for it. But at least the chalk will kind of give you guys an idea of what it's going to look like. Oh, I bet if I hold this in and hemmed it, that would make it look a little better. Yeah. Alright, yeah, I'm going to hem this. So you can kind of see what I was doing. Yeah, there you go. You can see I'm marking where the stitching is going to go. Now I'm gonna I'm gonna hem everything, clean up all my edges, with the exception of the armhole, unless I absolutely have to, because that's gonna be a pain in the butt. Hey AJ, hey, I'm sorry I missed you last stream. For some reason I was streaming on my phone, and for some reason the chat didn't show up on my phone, on my screen. Ollie actually sent me a message on Instagram and was like, hey, you're not answering your chat. And I was like, it's not on. I had to turn it on separately. How have you been? I haven't talked to you in forever. Good to hear. Yeah, Connor and Josh are doing great. Oh, did it really? Oh, I want to see it. I saw the trailer. Forget when, but I saw the trailer and oh my gosh, it looks so good. Clem's all grown up. It's so sad. Yeah, I hope Clem doesn't die either, but that feels like how you would end it. I haven't actually played any of it, and I really should go back and play it now that I've been playing video games a little more. But I've watched Josh. He knows he is not allowed to play. He's not allowed to play it unless I'm there because I need to see it. Ow! Oh, that would be so sweet. I know The Walking Dead's not really sweet, so I don't know if they would end it like that. I need, there it is, need more wax paper. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So it's definitely something I want to, well, I'll watch Josh play it because he's already played through all the other ones. And I haven't yet. So I'll watch him play it, but eventually I'd like to play it myself. Sorry for all that crinkly. This is part of sewing pleather. Lots of crinkles until I get a Teflon foot or a walking foot. I still haven't seen Avengers Infinity War. I'm so behind on movies. We finally watched A Quiet Place, like, this weekend. It's ridiculous, but I mean, priorities, you know, baby comes first, so we haven't seen a whole lot of movies. So we're so far behind. I haven't seen Deadpool 2 yet, and I cosplay from it, which is just, oh my gosh, I cannot. We're just not going to talk about that. But it comes out soon, so we're going to buy it so I can see it. Nope, I haven't seen Infinity War. We don't go to the movies anymore. We really can't. I mean, I guess we could. It's just there's so much that we need to do that whenever we have, like, whenever one of the grandparents wants to have Connor for the day, like, we have other stuff we need to do that's more important than going to the movies. You know, adulting or cosplay. But like for me, a lot of it's cosplay. I'm like, I don't have a lot of time to work on cosplay, so when I do, I gotta grab at it because I might not get a chance again. Alright, got that done. Jeez, that took forever. I hope it looks pretty. That's the only problem with doing it this way is you can't really see your seams until after you rip all this tissue paper off. So you don't know if you did a good job or not. So let's see. Oh my goodness, you hadn't seen Ready Player One? Now that is one that, like, we got the grandparents to watch Connor, and we went and saw Ready Player One in theaters. That was such a good movie. But Josh has read the book on that, so like he really wanted to watch the movie while it was still in theaters. Or, yeah, I watched the movie while it was still in theaters. So we do have a couple of exceptions. We have been to the movies. Like, we went and saw Black Panther because I freaking love Black Panther. So when that came out, I was like, yeah, I've got to watch that. The other sucky part is that the tissue paper doesn't always rip away very cleanly, so you have to clean up your seams after you've done it. But the alternative is that it doesn't sew at all because it just sticks to your machine and you cry and cry and cry. Or at least I do. Why won't it work? Just like that. Yeah, Truth or Dare looked absolutely awful. Like, that's not even one I want to watch. Like, I wouldn't even rent that to watch it. I might not even watch it if it was, like, on TV for free. I might just flip past and be like, I'm good. We did rent, though, the other night, Annihilation. Oh, man, that was really good. And we just watched Tomb Raider here recently as well. And that was really good. At least we enjoyed it. I know it's got like mixed reviews, but we enjoyed it basically. I thought it was pretty good for an origin. The Death of Superman. That sounds familiar. I wonder if Josh has watched that or if he wants to watch it. I'm sure he does want. If he hasn't seen it, he wants to. He likes Superman. I'm kind of neither here nor there on Superman. Although I love Superwoman. I will clean this up better. I'm not doing a super good job because I don't want to keep you guys just sitting here watching me pick wax paper out of seams. Rampage. That's the one with the Rock and the white gorilla that gets really, really big, right? So we haven't seen that either. Just trying to make sure I'm on the same page with you. It's got, it has seams. There we go. Oh, you guys can't see that. There we go. Yeah, I remember seeing Jeffrey Dean Morgan in the preview. Alright, let's continue. Oh gosh, I rubbed off most of these. Continue marking where these stitches are going to go. Alright, so that's what it's going to look like on half. You can see it's got stitches along the neck, stitches across here, and stitches across the bottom. That I will do off stream because that's going to be very boring, and that'll be something that is very boring for me as well. So I'm going to have to be sitting in front of the TV watching some TV while I do that. Yeah, no, I saw that. A couple of my friends posted about the movie theaters doing the entire Marvel lineup, but like that is a lot of money, which is probably why they're doing it. Like they can get some of these people to come and see all of the movies in theaters again. The good thing about that is that if you missed any of these movies in theater, while it was in the theaters and you really wanted to see it, now you have a second chance to kind of go back and see it. We saw everything that we wanted to see in theaters already, so, and it's hard enough getting to the movies. I'm going to go grab the vest from the other room. So this is the burlap vest. And it will go, gosh, I feel like it shrunk. It will go over top like this. There is another vest that goes on top of this, so even though this part that's not so pretty is sticking out now, it will not be. That will get fixed. Alright, so that is going to be the end of the stream, because that is, you know, basically start to finish how to make this leather top for Freya. Maybe next stream I'll do the suede vest that goes underneath this burlap one, and we'll do start to finish on how to drape that, since it's, you know, making your own pattern, but instead of doing a fitted pattern, it's now a baggy pattern, so we'll drape that. So AJ, thanks for chatting with me here at the end of the stream. Ollie, thanks for being here earlier. And to all of my silent watchers, thank you for hanging out and watching me sew. This video I'm going to try, as soon as I end this right now, I'm going to try to upload it onto YouTube so that it is there permanently for anybody who wants to check it out. So if you only caught part of it and you want to see the whole thing, or if, you know, sewing is very boring to sit and watch, so if you popped in and were like, ooh, this is interesting, I'll watch it later, you can kind of fast forward through the boring bits where I'm just doing something repetitive, and you can work, or you can work along with me. That would be awesome too. So that is it for now, and thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye!